Welcome to my next video, guys. Continuing the trend of producing nostalgic retrospectives, we will be going through the next game of my childhood. One that is still to this day considered as groundbreaking for the genre. To even begin talking about this title, we will have to go back in time to 18th of November 1998, when a small studio created by two ex-Microsoft employees has decided to innovate the gaming space. And let me tell you, innovate they did. They have created a game on a modified engine that has been licensed from id Software called Quake Engine. According to Valve itself, the golden source engine in the final version was 75% their own code. But if you want to learn more about the production, I highly suggest watching Half-Life 25th anniversary documentary on Valve's channel, which I will link in the description of this video. After all, you're here to listen about the nostalgic side of the game, so why won't we delve more into that? I vividly remember that my father was a fan of FPS games back in the days. Still to this day, he has a lot of the CDs that he has bought throughout the years, including Quake and Quake 2 with all the map packs that have been released on separate discs. So naturally, when Half-Life hit Poland, he had to get it too. If I recall correctly, we had big boxes of base game and both expansion packs, Opposing Force and Blue Shift. That will be the topic of the upcoming videos. I can easily recall that the splash art of Gordon Freeman from the physical copy closely resembled how my father looked, minus the hair. Yeah, my dad started balding really young. He even had similar glasses that Gordon wore, and I think that this is single-handedly the strongest memory that drew me back to the game time and time again. What struck me as really odd is that the game itself is objectively short. When I was younger, I remember watching my old man playing it for multiple evenings. But then again, we were kids, and summertime seemed to last an eternity. I can't recall too many details from those times, but I remember one thing strongly. The iconic train ride that's followed by exploring the depths of Black Mesa and how interactive the environment is. Almost everything that you see and think can be interacted with is actually interactable. That might sound as something obvious nowadays, but please remember that the game came out in '98 and it was a shooter. Of course, there were games that came out in 1998 which were almost a visual novel, but those weren't first-person shooters. FPSs up to this point were about running around and shooting bad guys, for example Duke Nukem 3D, Doom or Quake. Yeah, those had some story behind it, but it wasn't the main focus. But to the point, I have been introduced to Half-Life around the same time I was introduced to Diablo 2. Obviously, in both cases I was too little to actually play the game myself. Truth be told, I was too little to even start up my family PC, so I was relegated to just watch my father play it. The thing that has always made me smile or even laugh is my father doing dodges in real life. What I mean by that is, Half-Life is by some called a strafe shooter, as one of the most viable strategies is running circles around your opponents and just mag dumping them. Thus, when my father strafed left, he literally leaned left on a chair. And let me be clear, it was funny until I started streaming and people started making fun of me doing the same exact thing. This is unconditional, and I could only assume that it was unconditional for my father too. A quick preface, I will try to keep this chapter as short as possible, but please be aware that I will be spoiling majority of the in-game story. Some videos out there mock the concept of someone not playing a 26 years old game, not taking into consideration that some of the viewers might be too young to have actually played the game. Thus, if you want to avoid any spoilers, skip to the timestamp on screen now. I will be tackling some characteristics of game design in this chapter, but I will also do my best to summarize them in further parts of the video. At 8:47 AM, a theoretical physicist, Gordon Freeman, is already running late to the most important event in human history up to this point. Arriving at our destination, we are informed that we are indeed pressed for time. Despite of running late, we are free to explore our department on our way to retrieve the most crucial tool in our arsenal, Hazardous Environment Suit. We can troll other employees either by using a computer... I'm checking my mails now.
Get away from there, Freeman. I'm expecting an important message.
Triggering an alarm. There's a conveniently placed red switch here.
Where did I leave my God, what are you doing?
Come on, Gordon. You trying to get me into trouble?
Or basically destroying someone's lunch.
My God, what are you doing?
Once we are comfortable inside our new casing, we head towards anti-mass spectrometer, where we are about to conduct scanning of the biggest sample of crystal yet. Keep in mind that we as the players do not have information on what the crystal is, as Valve has this really amazing philosophy of show, don't tell. In fact, there is a grand total of one cutscene in this game that takes control from the player, and it lasts about 10 seconds, but more on that later in this video. After turning on the machine, we are tasked with pushing cart carrying the crystal into the AMS. This begins our journey filled with havoc and lead, as our experiment has caused a resonance cascade connecting our universe with the border world of Zen. Earth is flooded with alien entities which are not here to make acquaintances, to say the least. After a while we regain consciousness, and to our shock we see everything in shambles. Dead scientists scattered everywhere. The remnants trying to perform a CPR on those who are down but still alive. But the deceased personnel and structural damage of the facility is just the beginning of our problems. On our way back we meet Eli Vance and Dr. Kleiner, who asks us to get back to the topside and call for help. Little did we know, neither will it be easy nor actually helpful. Shortly after, we find the answer to most of our problems. The iconic holy grail of the series. Gordon's Crowbar. Since the tram system is too damaged to work, we need to find another way to the surface. After tearing through hordes of vortigans, headcrab zombies, hound eyes and bull squids in the office complex, we reach high-security storage facility at Sector D, where we encounter US military. I guess we no longer need to reach the surface to call for help, right? Unluckily, the HECU, which stands for Hazardous Environment Combat Unit, is here to do something more foul than save us from our peculiar predicament. They are here to cover up the resonance cascade incident and silence the witnesses by administering cautiously prescribed dosage of lead. As a consequence, Gordon has to face not only the alien threat, but also something more down to earth, a whole battalion of United States Army. The next location is a treat for perverted hentai enthusiasts here. We reach the blast pit, where an alien aptly named Tentacles has appeared. To get rid of it, we have to initiate the test of a rocket engine whose thrusters hangs just above the alien. After turning on the fuel injector and oxygen, we do what I hope you agree is the only correct solution when dealing with hentai watchers. We burn those tentacles down to the last atom. Before we even catch a break, we are a witness of a situation that could explain why didn't we meet HECU in the first couple of chapters. On the intersection of a small tram system, a couple of Marines are unloading everything they have against an enormous alien, Gargantua. Their effort, though valiant, is crushed by huge flames emitted from the upper appendixes of the alien. If we want to proceed in our adventure, we need to turn back on the power supply for the rail system, which also could help us in defeating the monster. Two huge transformers at the end of one of the corridors have a comfortably big gap between them, big enough to lure the alien in and get rid of it. Next chapter is the most boring one, ex aequo with Zen. On the Rail is basically a scroller shooter, and I will omit most of it, as nothing worth of interest is happening here. A fun fact, you can actually use the trip mines you have found earlier to skip the chapter entirely. The chapter climaxes at the space rocket launch site, which we happily use to send a satellite into Earth's orbit in attempt to close the portals which bring more and more aliens onto Earth. After a successful launch, we continue upwards to the surface. Chapter 9, Apprehension, is where we bear witness of a singular instance of a cutscene where the game takes control from the player. Up to this point we saw HECU not only executing scientists, but also heard messages over the radio talking about Freeman. Additionally, during the On the Rail chapter, we encounter plenty of graffiti on the walls, with messages such as Surrender Freeman, more often than not misspelled. Now, we are also met with another group present in the wake of the cascade, the Black Ops, who are killing both scientists and HECU members. After the fight with the sexy black latex assassins, we find a much needed first aid station. After entering the room, the screen goes black and we hear sounds of commotion. Gordon dostaje...
I see it.
Why the fuck did I start... Okay, Gordon dostaje polski wpierdol. Yeah. We wake up being carried by two Marines who, out of spite, decide to throw us into a trash compactor instead of bringing Freeman for an interrogation. After all, we killed many of their friends already. The Marines committed one grave mistake. They stripped us of our weapons, but we are still in our HEV suit. As a consequence, we make it out from the trash compactor in one piece, now motivated more than ever to put an end to the cleanup operation and whole resonance cascade. On our way to Lambda Complex, we also learned that Black Mesa facility has been collecting alien specimens long before the situation we are in right now. Reaching the facility, we meet up with a small force of personnel that set up a tiny stronghold right outside of the Lambda core. We are also informed that the satellite we launched previously did not complete its task, as something powerful on the other end keeps the rifts open. Thus, we need to teleport ourselves to the Zen, where the entity most likely keeps the portal wide open. time a charm. Arriving at Zen, we are met with even more peculiar creatures, some of them just minding their own businesses and not paying attention to Gordon. Furthermore, we encounter more evidence that our company has known about the border ward of Zen, as we can see multiple corpses of Black Mesa agents wearing the same HEV suits that we are. On our way to the entity, we are matched in combat with Gonarch, a boss which is a final evolution stage of Headcrab. After besting her in a battle, we teleport to a place which resembles a factory, where we are met with friendly Vortigons. Here we can learn that those poor creatures are actually enslaved by the same alien that holds the portal open. At the end of the factory, we step through the final portal. And here we go, the last chapter of the game. And here we are, in front of a monster that looks like an enormous and abnormally proportioned fetus, bearing a massive head on top of its shoulders which crown a smaller body. Nylanth, as it is called, is a tyrannical overlord of the variety of species in Zen. Killing him will not only be a huge favor to the beasts inhabiting the border world, but also most likely will close the portals, tormenting the earth for good. Defeating the abomination teleports us to various locations in Zen, while a mysterious man that we have seen multiple times for our escape from Black Mesa monologues.
Gordon Freeman in the flesh. Or rather, in the hazard suit. I took the liberty of relieving you of your weapons. Most of them were government property. As for the suit, I think you've earned it. The border world, Zen, is in our control for the time being, thanks to you. Quite a nasty piece of work you managed over there. I am impressed. That's why I'm here, Mr. Freeman. I have recommended your services to my employers, and they have authorized me to offer you a job. They agree with me that you have limitless potential.
We are being told that we are of limitless potential, and our deeds has guaranteed us an offer from the employers of the man. We end up on a train, identical to the one we've traveled at the beginning of our journey, but this time we are not on a rail. We are traveling through space. We were given a choice between taking up an offer or be granted a battle that we have no chance of winning. And just like that, in what, dozen of paragraphs, we made it through the story of Half-Life 1. It is really hard to talk about the graphics, as they obviously look dated, but don't we all? It is even harder, as I would like to say something that hasn't been said yet. But if you think about it, what couldn't have been said in a time span of over a quarter of a century? Despite the toll that 26 years took on the title, it is still perfectly readable and, in all honesty, charming in its blockiness. Surprisingly detailed, considering that most of the models have less polygons than an eyeball of Aloy in Horizon Zero Dawn. Things like slave collars and handcuffs on Vortigons, or individual mouth tentacles of bull squids. Of course, playing this on some high-fidelity 2K screen as I did, you will see lots and lots of imperfections, but we gotta remember that the game has been created with 4x3 in mind, and I don't think that anybody back then even dreamt of quadrupling their mighty 800x600. But as it is a nostalgic retrospective, I can tell you what I felt back in the day. I will do a literal translation of one of my favorite idioms. In the 2000s, the graphics made me suck in the sponge from the chair with my own ass. Granted, I haven't seen too much up to that point, but still, it was groundbreaking. Considering the upgrade from alpha and beta builds, the game turned out gorgeous. The only thing that bugs me and the majority of players is the Zen. A couple of last chapters were clearly rushed in the development. They lack attention to the detail that previous parts of the game had. This has been heavily improved in the fan-made remake called Black Mesa, which I'm thinking of playing through during my streams. The environments are bland, almost monocolored, the skybox looks like a background of SpongeBob episode. The geometry, which never was a strong side of Gold Source Engine, is even worse here, which, to be honest, is really unfortunate, as you may have already figured out, but I love this game down to the core, and it pains me that Zen was most likely produced during crunch time, and it shows. Another thing that looks really dated yet still charming are the weapon models. Of course, there are a couple of quirks here and there, like the shotgun, which has been modeled after Spaz 12, having an alternate fire of shooting from both barrels. I'm pretty sure there will be a couple of gun nuts out there already fuming and typing in the comment section that Spaz does not have 2 barrels, which is 100% true. What happened is most likely the devs seeing the real gun and thinking that the magazine, which is just below the barrel, is a second one. But besides this, everything is fine and dandy. Each weapon has a distinct silhouette, so even during the high-octane gameplay you will instantly know what's lying on the ground around you. The particle and ambient effects are mostly 2D sprites, meaning that they always look the same no matter the angle from which you're looking at them. That does not particularly mean that they are horrendous. I would even reach to say that it's quite the opposite. You see, Half-Life 1 was designed with a precise idea in mind. It was first and foremost a story-driven horror shooter, thus most of the alien origin effects add to the unsettling atmosphere. The locations themselves are immersive enough for you not to pay attention to sometimes immensely ugly skyboxes. I could think of only one instance when the skybox bothered me. When you come out of the sewage pipe onto the cliffs of Black Mesa. Most of the levels have a decent amount of verticality, which is probably an aftermath of Half-Life being fruitful with physics puzzles. I will repeat myself, but as a conclusion, graphics are dated, no doubt, but still carry a great charm, while being distinct and well readable to the point where you should not have any issues with differentiating your threads or silhouettes of weapons laying on the ground. Like in multiple games from this period, there are plenty of music pieces, audio cues and stings that live rent-free in our boomer gamers' heads. Show me at least one person who played through Half-Life and does not recognize the score from picking up the HEV suit. All of the weapons have distinct sounds, meaning that you are always aware of what is going on around you. Couple this with specific enemies or NPCs using only certain weapons, and you know you'll be dealing with HECU from miles away. And let me tell you, there was nothing more terrifying back in 2000s than playing Half-Life late in the evening, going through a dark hallway and hearing an alien teleport sound right behind you. Funnily enough, if you have a physical copy of Half-Life, you can put the CD in any music player and will be able to listen through the whole soundtrack. Which nowadays, let's be honest, is a bit redundant, as you can either listen to it on YouTube or just get it from Steam as a free DLC to Half-Life 1. As a fun fact taken out from the Anniversary documentary, I can tell you that one of the sounds corresponding to walking on a wet surface has been recorded by a sound engineer slapping his wife's wet butt cheeks. To be perfectly honest, I have very little to say about the soundstage of the game besides it being brilliant and well thought out. Now to the meat of the video. For me, personally, Valve is a company that I both love and despise with my guts. Their philosophy of only creating games at the time when they can innovate on something is both genius and idiotic. Thanks to their modus operandi, they have been unable to count to 3. We never got Half-Life 3 or Portal 3, because they did not see a way to innovate with a new installments. Granted, when VR started to be recognized as a valid gaming option for many, we have received Half-Life Alyx, which is a prologue to Half-Life 2. Half-Life 1 was a milestone in gaming history. As you might have recalled from the intro of this video, I have said that shooters up to this point weren't focused on a story and were more of a mindless run-and-gun escapism tools. Valve has changed the perception of the genre, releasing a game which proved to the wider public that FPS games can be much more than killing the bad guys. That is one end of the spectrum. On the other hand, holding to the idea of show don't tell, coupled with almost never taking controls of players, created a magical mixture that is still remembered strongly as something which broke the ice for the other shooter titles that followed. But my love and hate relationship with Valve aside, I feel like unintentionally they created a piece of art that has changed gaming history for good. Yeah, it is rough around the edges and huge parts of the lore have been revealed just before and during the story of Half-Life 2, supplemented by some clarifications by Mark Laidlaw, the author of the script for both installments. They managed to create something that is both easily digestible and grave enough for everyone to enjoy. Add up all of those ingredients and the outcome of the equation is nostalgia trigger, one of the strongest for me, I might add. I think it won't be an understatement if I say that still to this day I like to play FPS games solely because of this piece of art. Would I recommend playing Half-Life 1? Well, that depends. If you're all about the graphical details, I would say no, and that the better choice would be picking up Black Mesa, which is a fan-made total remake of the game created by Crowbar Collective, which has been blessed by Valve themselves. I have played through most of it once, and I think it is pretty faithful to the original. The exception to that statement would be going through the OG game if you really like the YouTube series Half-Life 1 but AI is Self-Aware by Wayne Radio TV, which by the way I loved and still sometimes rewatch for the fansies. If you do not care about graphics being outdated and you just want to relive your childhood, go ahead, I wholeheartedly recommend playing through it, just to relive the nostalgia. As I said before, the game is rough around the edges and limitations of Gold Source engine are visible on every step, but isn't it what makes the game magical? After all these years, coming back to this title is still a pleasant experience, thanks to its combat, movement, story, visuals and most importantly nostalgia, with which I'm being overflowed every time I boot up the game. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, consider leaving a sub and maybe hitting the thumbs up button. As you can see, I have tried to keep this video more concise than the previous one on Diablo, especially cutting on the story summary part. Let me know in the comments if you would change anything in this video yourself. My next video should be on both of the expansion packs that have been released for Half-Life 1, that being Opposing Force and Blue Shift. I still don't know if I will create 1 or 2 videos as both of those are pretty short, around half of the length of the original game. Thanks again and see you soon guys!